me, Scott!
Happy Mother's Day, everyone. I think there's no better way to celebrate than by tearing into the worst cartoon moms of all time. Whether they're brats themselves or responsible for giving birth to even bigger brats, it's time to give these characters exactly what they deserve. So today, I'm going to be ranking 10 of the worst cartoon moms from F tier to S tier, with F tier being your average soccer mom who forgets to pick up their kid from practice, and S tier being the mother of the Antichrist. Also, make sure to subscribe so we can hit 60,000 subscribers and I can finally release my review for Elmo and Grouchland. Trust me, you all have no idea how insane this movie is. Let's not waste any more time and delve right in. This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Make sure to subscribe and help get this video to 5,000 likes. Number 10.
You call that a coin toss?
Let's kick things off with one of the most iconic cartoon moms of the past 30 years, Señorita Peggy Hill. There are plenty of YouTubers, including myself, who have gone into great detail about how delusionally insane this woman can be. Whether she's ruining Thanksgiving, impersonating nuns, or kidnapping kids from Mexico, Peggy Hill is possibly the most sociopathic cartoon character ever put on screen. That being said, I don't actually think Peggy is a bad mother. She can definitely be unhinged, but most of her antics have nothing to do with her parenting skills. When you go back and watch the show, you'll see that Peggy Hill is one of the better parents on King of the Hill. There are obvious counterexamples of her being a crappy mom, with Goodbye Normal Jeans being the prime example. But when you look at the episodes where Peggy has to be an actual parent to her son, she usually steps up to the plate. Don't get me wrong, Peggy Hill is still an awful person, but just because someone is a bad person, that doesn't mean they're inherently a bad mom. Over King of the Hill's original 13-season run, Peggy has proven time and again that Bobby is her pride and joy. She may be a terrible friend and a lackluster spouse, but Peggy has always strived to be the best mother she can be, even if she doesn't always know how to best raise her son. For that reason, I'm gonna rank Peggy Hill as a B-tier bad mom. Not great, but there's no reason to get child services involved. Yet. Number 9. It's fitting that a kid called Horrid Henry should have a mother who's just as horrid. What can I say about Henry's mom that Snipe Snap hasn't already said better? This has got to be one of the most insufferable mothers I have ever seen on a kids show in recent years. Henry's mom looks like a walking midlife crisis who's one bad day away from abandoning her family. When she isn't actively ignoring her oldest son, she's screaming his ear off for not being like his perfect little brother. I can't imagine it's easy raising a child who's as hyperactive as Henry, but that hardly justifies his mom's behavior throughout the show. More often than not, she makes things worse by feeding into Henry's acts of rebellion and giving him the attention he's constantly starved of. If she didn't dote so much on pesky Peter, I'm sure Henry wouldn't feel the need to lash out for her attention. But she seems to have accepted the idea that her child is horrid and sees no point in trying to improve his attitude. She doesn't even attempt to curb his bad behavior. She just yells at him when he acts out and scolds him for living up to his self-imposed nickname. And it's for that reason that I am putting Henry's mom as the first mother in the A tier of horrible cartoon moms. Considering how neglectful she can be, it's a wonder Henry didn't turn out more horrid than he already is. Number 8.
Look! My old swimsuit still fits!
Speaking of neglectful parents, let's turn to the textbook example of reckless child abandonment. Mrs. Turner is one of those characters who makes you laugh when you're a kid, but as you get older, you realize just how terrible of a parent she is. It's clear she doesn't care about her son, as she and her husband are constantly ditching him to do Lord knows what, while leaving him to be perpetually tormented by the Queen of Mean. The whole premise of the show is that Timmy's parents are so bad that he needs a second set of guardians just to have a decent childhood. That being said, I don't think she's the worst mother on this bracket, not by a long shot. I think a lot of us forget how the early era Turner parents were played off more as well-meaning half-wits rather than neglectful narcissists. Mrs. Turner could be a pretty good mother when she wanted to be. One of my favorite moments from early Fairly Odd Parents was when she helped get her son's ball back by beating the crap out of his bullies. Of course, she then immediately turned around and started pelting her son and his friends, but we take the W's where we can get them. Her character definitely got worse as the show went on, but the show itself got worse as it went on, so I'm gonna put Mrs. Turner in the B tier. When compared to her husband, she's definitely the lesser of two evils, but I still wouldn't hire her as a babysitter anytime soon.
Mom, and it was my favorite job.
Number 7.
Mom!
pass the Tabasco, dear?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even kids in the 90s could suss out what was in those special smoothies. This woman goes through so many drinks, you can almost smell the coconut rum on her breath through the screen. Miriam Pataki is one of those parents who, once you meet them after seeing their kids' behavior, makes you go, oh, that makes sense. It would be one thing if she was just a neglectful mom who doesn't pay attention to her kids, but the fact that she actively favors her eldest daughter while purposefully undermining her youngest adds a whole new level of cruelty. The only few times Miriam manages to pull herself out of the bottle is when she's fawning over Olga. I mean, what is Helga supposed to think when her mother's actions basically say, your existence is not worth my sobriety? It's a miracle she didn't turn out even more screwed up than she already is. Helga's dad is no prize either, but at least he knows how to hold his own around his kids. I'm glad we didn't see that much of Helga's parents throughout the show, because I feel like the less we know about them, the better. I think you'll all agree that Miriam Pataki has earned her spot as an A-tier bad mom. The only thing keeping her from S-tier is the brief moments when she shows a fleeting interest in her daughter, but those are few and far between. Number 6.
Alright, you know what? Change your own diaper.
I tried to limit this list primarily to moms from children's cartoons, but seeing how Bob's Burgers tends to blur the line between being a show for kids, adults, and families, it felt appropriate to include. Linda Belcher is a character I have mixed feelings on. She's definitely one of the funniest people on the show, and her neurotic tendencies can make for some great adventures, but more often than not, she finds herself at odds with her husband and children, especially when she doesn't get her own way. That's not to say she's inherently a bad mom. When compared to other characters like Cynthia Bush and even her own mother, Linda is arguably the best mom on the show. The reason I felt inclined to add her to the list was because of episodes like Grand Mama Pest Hotel and Mother-Daughter Laser Racer. In both those episodes, Linda tries to force her daughters to be her best friend because she can't stand the thought of them not wanting to be by her side every second of the day, which ironically pushes them even further away. Not only does she humiliate her kids, but the show acts like she's the victim for wanting to spend more time with them. Linda has her fair share of good mom and bad mom episodes. When they're good, they can be great, but when they're bad, they're really, really bad. For that reason, I'm placing Linda Belcher in the C tier. By no means awful, but there's certainly room for improvement. Number 5. How did a woman this vile manage to produce one of the most lovable cartoon dads of the past 15 years? Wait, there's no way the show is almost 15 years old, right? Holy crap. I remember when the show started airing, Granny JoJo was just your average cranky elder with gross grandma kisses. But the more screen time she got as the show went on, she quickly became one of the most despised characters on the show. She constantly belittles her daughter-in-law, she's insanely jealous when it comes to her new boyfriend, to the point that she's cut him off from his other friends and family, and she continues to baby her own son, even though he's a grown-ass man. All it took was one afternoon without Nicole for Granny to turn her kids into fat drooling clones of their father. If that doesn't tell you enough about her parenting style, I don't know what else will. Even her own grandkids recognize how toxic of an influence she can be. Honestly, kicking out Richard was probably the best thing she ever did as a mother. I feel more than justified putting Granny JoJo in the A tier of bad moms. The only thing keeping her from S tier is the fact that she's not the worst one of Richard's parents, but that's still a very low bar. Number 4.
Norman Price!
Seriously, why hasn't Dilys sent her son off to boarding school yet? If my child was as big a terror as Norman Price, I would have shipped his arsonist ass out of the country years ago. While Norman might not be the worst cartoon brat I've ever talked about, he's certainly the most dangerous. I'm not sure how you start over 50 fires on accident, but somehow he has. It also doesn't help that Dilys has one of the most shrill voices I've ever heard. Whether it's the original or the American dub, she somehow manages to sound even more annoying than her son.
Bessie, on fire!
The one redeeming factor Dilys has is that she actually punishes her child when he misbehaves. This woman is clearly not afraid to spank her child in public when she catches them acting up. I swear, if Norman Price isn't getting the belt from his mom, it's because she's already giving him the chancla. Though despite her best efforts to put some sense into her son, some kids are just beyond the point of saving. This might be a controversial decision, but I'm gonna put Dilys Price in the B tier. The fact that she at least tries to discipline her child makes her leagues better than all the parents above her in the bracket. Before we move on to the top 3, I want to give a quick honorable mention to the mother of one of the biggest brats in the history of cartoon brats.
Jonathan, hold on, Jonathan, we're coming to a rapid.
I want to make it clear from the get-go that Charlotte Pickles is a good mom. She does her best to balance her family with her ever-demanding work life. Even when she's laser-focused on her career, she still manages to give her daughter the attention she so desperately craves. Like I said, I mainly wanted to talk about her because she's the mother of Angelica, a spoiled little brat whose screams still haunt my nightmares.
Ow! Ow!
Is she a perfect mother? No. Is her daughter perfect? Hell no. As I've stated in previous videos, I place the blame for Angelica's craptastic attitude at the feet of her father, Drew Pickles. Not only does he spoil her rotten by giving in to her every demand, but he's too much of a wimp to put his foot down unless his wife is there to back him up. If this was a ranking of bad cartoon dads, Drew Pickles would easily be in one of the top brackets. But I would argue that Charlotte is unironically one of the best cartoon moms on Nickelodeon. Hell, she's not even the worst mom on Rugrats. Yes, she can be harsh and occasionally selfish, but when you boil it down, Charlotte is a caring mom who knows when to put her foot down. That's why I feel comfortable putting her at the very bottom of the bracket. If there's a mom that's better than Charlotte, she's not going on the list. Now let's move on to the top 3 moms I know you've been anxious to hear me talk about. Number 3.
Mom, can I ask your father?
Alright, let's do this. I don't know what Jane Reed did to piss off God, but we're clearly all paying for her sins via her hellish offspring. And if you're going to have one of the most annoying kids on the face of the earth, you at least need to know when to bust out the belt. As we've seen time and again throughout the show, Jane either turns a blind eye to her daughter's bad behavior, or gives her a lazy slap on the wrist that wears off by the start of the next episode. She can't even get DW to quit slamming doors because some random kid understandably didn't want to invite her to her birthday party. Jane Reed is so bad a mom, she's the whole reason I have a career on YouTube. Do you know how bad your kid has to be for a grown man to spend 3 years pointing out how awful she is? The only thing preventing Jane from being the worst mother in the world is the fact that she somehow managed to raise 2 other kids who are pretty decent. Normally 2 out of 3 isn't bad, but when one of your children is as bad as DW, you know you screwed up somewhere along the way. For that reason, I've decided to put Jane Reed in the B tier of bad moms. As much as I want to put her in A tier, I know there are far worse moms more deserving of that rank. Speaking of which, Number 2. Yeah, if you thought DW's mother was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. The fact that this woman gave birth to this little bald bastard should be considered a crime against humanity. When it comes to Caillou's mom, and yeah, I know her name is Doris, but let's be honest, we all know her as Mommy. When it comes to Caillou's mom, I don't know how she's managed to live with this little twerp for so long without jumping off a bridge. You would think by now she would have tried to abandon her son or ship him off to the circus, but instead, she's taken it upon herself to ensure Caillou will be a blight on all our hopes and dreams. Cause I guess if she's miserable, then we all have to be miserable. Doris might be the most passive pushover of a mother I've ever seen in a kid's cartoon. Half the time, she can't even be bothered to discipline her own son, and when she does, she ends up turning his punishment into a reward, so he ends up learning all the wrong lessons. We can only hope that Rosie doesn't turn out anywhere near as bad as her brother. I don't think there's anyone who would rank the mother of Caillou any lower than A tier. Doris has more than earned her spot as one of the worst cartoon moms of all time. But as you'll soon see, there's one cartoon mother who makes everyone else in this bracket look like angels by comparison. Number 1.
You ruined me, Bojack.
I know.
As bad as all the other moms on this list may be, Beatrice Horseman is in a whole other league. I cannot think of a more vile, cruel, vindictive, mean-spirited person in any other cartoon I've ever seen. I remember when I first started watching BoJack Horseman, I didn't think anyone could be more despicable than the title character. But man, was I proven wrong. It's not even that I get angry when Beatrice is on screen, but the scenes where she has to interact with her son or her husband or her father are genuinely uncomfortable to watch. Watching Beatrice is like being at your friend's house when their parents start fighting in front of you, and all you can do is just sit quietly and stare at your hands. I'm just gonna say this right now, this is the closest I will ever come to making an FU video for Beatrice Horseman. With most of my videos, part of the fun is getting hyperbolically mad at characters who would be relatively harmless in real life, but with Beatrice, there's nothing hyperbolic about her cruelty. We know how she became the way she did, but that's still no excuse for how she treated her son throughout her entire life. When she wasn't verbally degrading him or dressing him up as her little puppet, she did everything she could to remind BoJack that he would never be as good as her dead brother. I can't think of anyone more deserving of the rank of S tier, not just as one of the worst cartoon moms, but possibly the worst mom of all time. And on that uplifting note, happy Mother's Day. Hopefully your mom isn't as bad as any of the moms I've talked about in this video, but I am curious, what's the most embarrassing thing your mom has ever done? I remember there was this one time when my mom... Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comments which cartoon brat you want me to tear into next. If there's a specific episode you want me to cover, consider becoming one of my top tier patrons to commission a review for my channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. If you could learn to work and play and get along with each other.